Would you like to change the world in a peaceful, inspiring way? Well, if you do, I think movies and the media might be the way. And we have a special guest to talk about some ways that he is changing the world. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Freedom Lovers Show. We are building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time with me, David James Rodriguez. And we're blessed to have a movie director on the show with us today who created amazing cult classic already, a Jones Plantation movie based on the writings of Larkin Rose and one of the cartoons or kind of the layouts that he did so many years ago that has gotten good grassroots support. And now it's a feature length film. And I was so honored to meet him and be in communication with him because we need more people like this. So hopefully this will inspire many of you people out there to get your own projects going and start spreading the truth of self-ownership and freedom and the BS of the left-right paradigm that somebody can rule you without your consent. So before we jump into your history and all the cool stuff you're doing, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, man? Good to be here.
Yeah, it's first of all, congratulations on this amazing feat of completing Jones Plantation. It's not easy, and I'd like to hear, how you did it. But I think we could start off of learning what inspired you to start that film project and how did you complete it? Because a lot of people have ideas, and we just briefly mentioned before, like I'm talking with some guy and we're trying to put something together. Like that's one step, but then actually getting the funding, getting locations, and the cast and everything. Like this is not easy. So, what inspired you to take on this project? And we can start there and kind of unfold wherever the conversation goes.
What was 20 the conference in Mexico, Anarchapulco, the one right before all the COVID nonsense started. So
2020, yeah.
yeah,
The last
literally,
one.
literally we went down there and it literally started like when I got home, like the week after I got home. So it wouldn't have happened if that had happened like 2-3 weeks earlier. And when I was down there, I actually went down there with my my friend Doug Mize, who actually is the assistant director on the film. And we were doing a project called Democracy Down, which was going to be like a documentary. We were going to interview people from all walks of life and kind of figure out, okay, this isn't working, what's next, kind of thing. It's kind of a loose plan. I don't know. It was just driven to go down there. We drug all of our equipment down there. And while I was there, I interviewed Larkin. And I found out he was from Arizona. We were living in Arizona. And during the interview, it's on my YouTube channel. I was like, well, it's interesting because I said, well, democracy is kind of pernicious because when you're a slave, you can see the whips, you can see the chains, but with this democracy, are we allowed to swear?
Oh yeah, freedom of expression, however you like.
Democracy horseshit. You can't. They make you think that you're free. They can talk you into being free, but you can't see the chains, and it's mental slavery. It's brainwashing.
Absolutely.
And he said, that's funny. I've got a little animation called the Jones Plantation. You should check it out. And so then Doug and I at different times watched it when we got back to the hotel room. It's that little 12-minute animation. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. It went viral. It's all over the internet.
We'll put it in the description here for people to watch. It's really awesome.
It's a real basic little pictures animation with a voiceover, and it's very powerful. And we're flying home, and I was like, that'd be a really cool short film. And Doug was like, we should make a feature film out of it.
Yeah.
So I got back to Arizona and I just, on a whim, I wrote Larkin. I was like, let's do an Indiegogo and let's make this thing into a feature film. And he's like, damn, that's an awesome idea. And he's been angry he didn't think about it this whole project. It's probably like a half a dozen interviews. Like, I didn't think about it. I don't know why I didn't think about it. And so we just decided to do it. And we did 2 Indiegogo campaigns and just, it's been, I wouldn't say it's been fun, but it's been good. It's been very good.
Right.
We made it. And every time, we're just about to be finished and crushed. Some little miracle occurred and we just kept going. And so I think, it's technically a little more than a micro budget film. I think our budget when you include post-production and marketing and everything, not that we've done any marketing, but like distribution, let's say, it's about $300,000. With donations and Indiegogo support and just people just giving us money from all over the world, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I think though it's probably the biggest selling film in its weight class in America right now, I'd say, which isn't saying a whole lot. It hasn't hit the mainstream yet. It's kind of this sort of cult kind of thing going right now.
Yeah.
But it's doing well and people seem to really enjoy it. Like I'd say 80% of the people just freaking love it. And then you have like 10% that like kind of maybe they stumbled upon it and they wanted to watch like Avengers or something. They're like, what is this low budget? People that don't watch indie films or just aren't ready to see it.
Yeah.
And then there's like 10% that actually absolutely hate the thing. And that's, which is a good thing, You don't want people not to have a reaction to it. But sure. The people that hate it, it's always two things. It's usually either the statism psyop, where they'll be like, you could tell we've hit them in a certain way, and we've hit their psyop in a certain way. We've hit their programming, and they're lashing out. Like we had one guy write, "I hated this film. I can't tell you how bad I hated this film. I've seen it twice now." And then the other one is the racism psyop. So the people are like, "Why is the main character black? Why is he black? There's only white people that were slaves." Like, no, you need to do your history, bro.
Yeah.
The origin of the word slavery is from Slovak, which was the first recorded slaves in history that were done by the Romans that we know of.
Yeah.
And they were Slovak, which were as white as you get. And that's where the word actually originated. So the slavery thing, I mean, certainly they've used race as a tool, but it's a control situation. It's not a primarily race situation. There's people who've enslaved each other all over the world, different races, people enslaving their own race. And the point is that slavery never ended. Now we're all slaves.
That's right. Yeah. And this is what nails it like right on the head, was that it's all psychological, and so you guys put in the Pledge Allegiance to the Jones Plantation flag is so good. And there's all these little like great, phrases that you get in there. It's just like, oh, holy shit, dude. Like this is breaking people out because it says something. There was one, trust the plan, right? What is it? Trust the plan.
Back the Blue is in there. Back the Blue.
Then you got that one in there. Okay.
Just doing my job.
Just doing my job. That's right.
There's another one. Build Back Better's in there. I think Build Back Better's in there. There's another one. It's a New Normal. New Normal's in there.
New Normal. Yep. That's right. That's like 5 of them right there. So it's like the modern and historical background of slavery. And that's the point, is that it hasn't gone away. Now it's all psychological. And so many of the audience knows that government, the word is gubernariamente, which is control the mind. So now, like you said, the chains is too obvious to see if we're slaves. So now the chains are up here. We're paying 30 to 50% of our income, and property taxes, death taxes, all these things. It's like, what the hell's going on around here, guys? It's like all of us are being screwed, and they're trying to divide us on race. So the film points that out, and I think it says, well, there's a lot of good phrases, but one of them was like, the guy, what do you say? Unless the people believe you have the right to rule you, then they don't like love to serve you, or something like that.
You're paraphrasing it. You said there's a bunch of those kind of lines in there, but the one line is, you can control a man for a period with brute violence, but you can never truly own a man unless he thinks your word is law and he must obey and is virtuous for doing so.
That's right. He's virtuous for doing so. And that's right. Where they have the do-gooders and all the people who are, I'm just doing my job, or I'm wearing the mask for you, or I'm getting the vaccine for you. It's like, no, you're not responsible for me. So I think we're taking 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward, which is who's responsible for our life, and ultimately to us. And you're not allowed to rule people. So you did the Indiegogo 2 campaigns. That's awesome. And then and you're doing direct distribution, from what I can tell, from your website.
It's available? It's available exclusively on the website now at jonesplantationfilm.com. That's the cheapest it'll be. We're about to launch it. It depends on how long it takes them to quality control the thing, but we're about to launch it on 20 different, all the big Globo platforms. We started off because we knew we had an audience. We wanted to get it to our audience first. And so now then we're going to take it and expand it out, because we've kind of run the course on that. So it'll be on like Amazon and Google Play and YouTube Premium and Apple TV and all that stuff soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm actually doing that kind of. I had a meeting last week and I'm putting that together right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's time for that. I mean, like I said, the film is really an allegory of the situation we're in now. It
Yeah.
really is not a slave planet. It's an allegory and it's also a satire. So through the context of a 1840s Southern slave plantation, because everybody recognizes that. And so, okay, we've had a lot of people that actually will see the trailers. I'm sick of these slave movies.
Mm-hmm.
Sick of these white hating movies and blah blah. I'm like, dude, you need to watch this. It's not what this is about. But it is trying to. It's like we wanted to do a Trojan horse where you go in, you think you're watching one thing, the thing you're used to watching, which is evil white people and black people enslaved, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is a lot different. And people have gotten it and that love it across cultures. It's not every, it's across cultures, but there is a small group of people where we hit that mental, that programming, and they lash out, but they say a lot. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. That's how you get to think, because if you'd come at me with this film 20 years ago, I probably would have done the same thing. Like, what the hell is this crap? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's an idea that, like, it's strange to think that both sides are wrong. Like, he brings in the family member and you guys selected him. And so you're able to see the parallels of Biden and Trump, or whoever, Bush and Clinton, and whoever's next, right? So I think it's for the conscious viewer, they can see that, okay, the whole system is shit, man. The whole system is about slavery and basically pushing us along an agenda that we never agreed to. And now we can call it out. And I think calling it slavery, calling statism slavery, I think is very accurate and it's very timely. And you might know the word from Confucius. He said the beginning of wisdom is to call a thing by its real name. And
Yeah,
that's what
a good
government
one.
is. It is that. And I used to think it was too harsh to call it slavery, but it isn't. Even the government schools, slave training, day prisons, that's what these institutions are, and they're destroying many children's lives, many parents' lives, and it's unacceptable. And so this is kind of the market pendulum coming back, it seems, with Ron Paul, in 2008 and 2012, and eventually on to voluntarism. That's my story. And then Anarchapulco started in 2015, and I got to see how that's growing. So, what is well, you mentioned the places you're going to distribute these things, but how long is the tail on an independent film? And feel free to share kind of about your background, how you got it in independent film. But the art that you're creating is very powerful, and people need to realize that this feature film will go on probably in perpetuity. It's probably going to be like a Rocky film where it's like, yeah, that's the original. And you mentioned some Vanguard film and part of being an American descent movement, and like that's coming and that's here. So how long can you use this film to promote this movement, or like, do you have to make another film in 2 years, or what's the general expectation of making an awesome film like this and then marketing it and distributing it and then making like a sequel or making a part two?
Well, a couple things there. I'm calling this film. I'm inventing this. So if anybody wants to come and join us, let's go. We'll have a website up soon. We're calling it the Vanguard Film of the American Dissident Cinema Movement.
Yeah.
That could just be the international dissident cinema movement, but I like American dissident
Yeah,
cinema.
the human.
Yeah.
The human
and
movement, yeah.
So most films, these the studio films, they'll blast it out and then it'll have a huge opening weekend, and then basically the film, how far the wave rides depends on the opening weekend. Things have changed a little, but that's basically it. This is much different. This is more of a cult kind of film where it's kind of growing and growing and growing and growing. And at some point, hopefully somebody in mainstream, it's going to kind of absorb its way into normie land, if you will. So there's a film, you've heard of Scarface, obviously.
Yeah.
So that film didn't really, and I hope this doesn't happen to ours. That film really didn't get itself into the culture for about 5 years. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, wow. I didn't.
panned. It didn't make any money in the beginning, and then
Mm-hmm.
it just slowly but surely started to grow and grow and grow. So we just keep spreading it out, spreading it out. Like I said, we're going to have it on all the big platforms and just word of mouth, word of mouth. We've got, I mean, I have people from all over the world writing me, telling me they've seen it, they love it, blah, blah, blah. But it's only been on the website. So the amount of sales that we've done and the fact that I do believe, I can't say worldwide that in our weight class we're number one, because there are actually there's some African film markets where these guys make these crazy, like violent films for like 10 grand. They sell all over Africa and make millions of dollars. But I know here there's nothing out right now that's selling like ours that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's, especially with the strike and all the other stuff. So it's expanding out, and hopefully it doesn't take 5 years, but yeah, I think it's hopefully going to get absorbed by the culture. And then I want to continue to make, I have ideas for films that I want to make. I already want to make my second film. So we'll see how
Mm-hmm.
that goes.
Beautiful. So is it fair to say you're at least broke even at this point, or you're approaching that, or you're in profitability?
Yeah, it's fair to say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. So that's
Fair
good
to
to
say
know
that.
about Scarface. So like there is a long tail. So in
Tail. Yeah.
theory, like in 6 months, 12 months, when this idea continues to spread and there's a lot of raving fans out there for Jones Plantation. I see you got the shirt on. Like this is a
Mm-hmm.
movement of like, hey man, we're calling out, yeah, calling out the left, right, pledge allegiance to your slave plantation. We're not doing that anymore. We're leaving the
Yeah.
slave plantation. But then,
We need an evolution. This is an
yeah,
evolution. There's no revolution. That's not going to work. And if the same old people are going to come in and take the thing
that's
over,
right. Mm-hmm.
we need a whole new paradigm. And that's
Yes.
not going to happen unless we don't have to, all of us have to evolve, but there has to be enough. If you think about these guys at this film, Jones Plantation, if you told them, hey, because this like takes place in the 1840s,
Mm-hmm.
if you had said, hey, in 20 years, this is all gone. This is all the slavery is going to be over. It's your whole way of life is gone. They're like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy?
Mm.
But it happened. Same thing in Russia. If you went to Russia in 1985, and if the communist, the Soviet Union fell in 89, said, hey, this
Mm-hmm.
is over in 4 years. It's gone. You'd be like, what are
Right.
you talking about? What are you crazy? This is never going to end.
Yeah.
So it sounds impossible right now, what we're talking about, me and you, but it's not. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
It can happen. We have to evolve and come up with a better system of some. You have to have a system, and you have to have order
Mm.
on some level.
Mm.
In my
So is
opinion.
this, yeah, so is the system that you envision, is it voluntarism, or have you identified, or libertarianism, or do you have a general idea that you see the being part of that evolution beyond statism?
Yeah, I mean, what I think about this a lot. What do you think?
I think voluntarism. Yeah, this is I think the clean word, because anarchy's been bastardized in the mainstream
It
media,
is. It
which
is.
is anarchy and chaos, but in reality, the world's a self-organizing system, and people can engage in a voluntary way. You look at the grocery store or farmers markets, these are all
Everywhere.
goods everywhere is organized. These
Yeah.
phones, all the parts in the phone get, organized on a voluntary basis. So I think if as soon as people can let go of the idea of what about the roads and what about the police, which I had to overcome these questions too. This is how I
Yeah.
discovered Threat Management Center out of Detroit, which is a private security firm. And he doesn't even call himself a private security firm. That's what it is, but it's a threat management organization, threat prevention organization, which is genius, right? Like you just create conditions where threats cannot occur. And he has a great curriculum and teachings on these things. But I think it is voluntarism. I think it's obvious that you're a king, I'm a king, the women out here are queens. This is my temple, whether someone believes in God or source or nature, but seems to be a spirit of life inside of me that keeps
Mm-hmm.
my heart going. And
Yeah.
this is like sacred and holy stuff, and we should not initiate harm against each other. I know you don't. I don't. It's only the city, county, state, and federal governments that, as Larkin says, hallucinates that they have authority over people, and they put it in the children. So the evolution seems to be voluntary relationships, consensual contracts, and voluntary agreements to say, here's what we agree on Does anybody disagree here? No? Okay, let's, do this. And I think contracting is going to be the way forward too. Hopefully on a blockchain, these smart contracts come about, and that's a whole nother conversation about the digital ID and central banking digital currency. I heard Bill Gates say that if you don't have a digital ID, you're not going to be able to participate in society. It's like, well, you're going to have your society and
Yeah.
we're going to have ours. And it seems like this exit and build strategy from Derek Bros and John Bush, which is keep all your slave systems over there. And then we're going to be over here, me and Andrew and our, families and children and grandchildren, everybody like this, and our food and water. We're going to build over here food forests, with Jim Gale and all these good people, because the idea, the consciousness is rising. And I think this film hopefully is going to I mean, it's already captured the grassroots on the raving fan base, but as you stated, like Scarface, hopefully in the next, 6, 12, 18 months, some distributor or some other producer, I don't know what would you be looking for? So you've made the film, you've created this amazing product and digital piece of media that's entertaining, it's educational. So now you need someone to be like, hey, Andrew, now we can put it on the theaters, or what's that move, or how does that work generally?
Well, we've been screening in theaters, but
Right.
we've been doing what they call four walling, where we rent the theater and put it up ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's not out of the realm of possibility. So there's two options, and I'm looking into both of them. The one is that I do get with a distributor, and they take the film and they might do a little theater run and spread it out. That all depends on what they're willing to do. A lot of those people will rip you off.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sketchy deal. The other one is to aggregate it myself and just use. There's a couple. I had a meeting with a company, like I said last week, and they want to help us out because they're like, this thing's doing way better than anything in your weight class that we have, and so they'll just aggregate it, take a cut, and aggregate it all over the internet on all the platforms all over the world. That's what I'm leaning towards, but I'm open minded to. And then we have a couple platforms here and there that we've licensed to. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So I don't know if Netflix would take it, but would that be something that you would be interested in? Like, would you reach out to Netflix, or they would reach out? Because everybody's trying to make money, right? So if you have a good product, then they can.
Netflix is kind of where films go to die, unless
Yeah.
unless you can work with them and have them produce the film for you, or
Sure.
the TV show, where you make your money on the front end kind of thing, and then they take it and they distribute it on their platform, and their kind of goal is to. It's tough. I mean, it's a murky situation, the indie film distribution. First and foremost, just sell the film. This is kind of my philosophy, and proof of concept. And so that people can see that we can make money on these kind of films. I mean, this is not a preachy film.
Sure.
And I knew Larkin wasn't didn't really realize until afterwards he knew that there was no way we were going to compete in the sort of period piece drama space. I knew we had to make a kind of a one-off film where we have pieces of every kind of genre. My definition of a cult film is like a one-off film, where it's just pieces of all kinds of different genres. So there's comedy in this film. There's a lot of funny stuff in here. It's kind of larger than life. A lot of mimetic stuff. The main characters, they're all kind of in the same. I like that about the Matrix, where they had those specific mimetic outfits that you can meme those characters, like Morpheus is in all kinds of different memes.
Yeah.
So, we've got Jones and Smith's got that big red outfit on. And then you have Jimmy Jack's got that big black outfit on, and just trying to make, like, you could say what you want. You might not like the film. You might love the film, but you've never seen anything like it. That is for sure.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the goal. I don't know where we were going with that or what you were asking originally, but
yeah, no, just about like, having success, because I think the consciousness of humanity, I mean, you guys, I think probably broke the mold for what films could talk about, kind of. I don't know all the details. I'm not a super film buff, but like, you've called out government as slavery effectively. And it's like, people, if they watch that, they say, wow, that looks like the government. So maybe the next film is going to be about voluntarism, or a society,
based on that. We're going to go deeper. The next film, we're going to go deeper in. We've called it out. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You've seen lots and lots of films where they'll attack the government, but it's always like from some political slant. Like, this guy's a bad politician, or we're calling out the entire idea of
Yes.
having these, because they're scam. Right? The whole thing's a control system. It's a scam.
Yep.
It's just a scam to convince you to think there's people out there that are taking care of you. And as long
Hmm.
as humanity is like a little child and wants mommy government
Yeah.
or daddy government to take care of them, we're screwed.
Yep.
We will be in prison. We are enslaved right now. There's,
Yep. Hmm.
if you're, it's a great meme. It's like if 100% of your money is taken from the government, it's slavery. So what is 50%? What is 30%?
Yeah. Half
That half
slavery. Yeah.
half slavery.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we call out, and we don't do it in this pedantic kind of boring, and I'm not trying to call out other things, but anything. It's almost like any kind of so-called freedom films have always kind of been like religious films with these real transparent. This is like, at least we tried. You'll decide whether or not we succeeded or not. We try to make it like just first and foremost a fun, entertaining, kind of crazy film, and it's a pretty wild film.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
but in
is.
it, but you call out, there's Jones Plantation, there's Jones Plantation, like the political ads. Oh, that's Jones Plantation. That was kind of
Oh
like
yeah. Hmm.
Berwick has talked about this. Like he sees Jones Plantation all over the place now, and he just says like, oh, that's Jones Plantation. So
Yeah.
we all live on Jones Plantation.
Mm, right. There's so many applicable takeaways from the film that you can now just project onto real life and
That's right.
say,
Yeah,
this is what's happening. And so I think that's a great takeaway because before you can solve the problem, you got to identify the problem.
that's
And
right.
you brought up a point like
What
as
gets
long
measured
as
gets managed. What's get measured gets managed.
that's right. Yeah, it's for I don't know how long, but 250 years, like people couldn't see the slavery because we didn't even know this idea existed. And now it's like, oh, the revolution was allegedly fought over, 3% stamp tax or T tax. Now we're at least paying 50% of our income through
At
all the
least.
taxes. So it's pretty, when you say like high time for people to take personal responsibility back and realize the state wants you to be dependent on them. I was having a conversation with some friends recently and they still believe in the Constitution. And it's like, no, like we're talking about the school system, and this is the school helps the poor people. It says no, the school makes them dependent on the state, and
Yep.
so now it weakens them versus if you're free to go out and build and grow and flex your muscles on your own, you get stronger. But if you're on this crutch over here called the state, you're actually weaker and you're getting older and aging and not getting the true benefit of the thrill of life. And that's like there is no safety and security, but the Jones Plantation and the government says, yeah, we're going to make you safe and it's going to be secure. But there is no security and safety, especially when they're robbing you and extorting you and creating all these things. Even like the January 6th stuff, like, okay, that's Trump's people, but it was like FBI people. It was like the FBI undercover busting itself, and this happens all throughout many other cases too. Undercover people busting each other. You ever seen the case where there's like an undercover drug dealer and then it sells to an undercover cop, and it's just like the different agencies are
Sounds like
busting
a
each other?
comedy. That'd be a
It's
funny movie.
that's a great skit right there.
Well, like
But
that,
then
that was that woman in Michigan, the governor or whatever. They pretended like she was about to get kidnapped. It was
Whitmer,
like
yeah,
18 feds and a mentally ill guy.
that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what I was going to go with that, but yeah, that's
Hmm.
100% right. It's the school system. It's a government school system to teach you how to live in a government system with their government rules within a
Yeah.
government level of consciousness. It's not, there's any government school, they're not teaching you how to be a prosperous, successful, free thinking,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial human being.
Mm.
They're not teaching anything like that. It's about order and taking orders and getting in line and bells and becoming a controlled human being with limited thinking and limited understanding of the world around you, the infinite
Hmm.
world around you.
Mm. Right. The mystery of life. They just say,
Yeah,
here's the world,
that's right.
accept it, obey it. And actually, it's a training program to be in the Jones Plantation. So
That's
it's
right.
like the adult world's Jones Plantation, and this is like little mini Jones Plantation Academy. And so you can be a good slave when you're in the system.
Again, the tagline of the film is "We all live on Jones Plantation." We do.
Mm.
We truly do.
Mm.
It's interesting because I was the same way. I mean, you grew up in America. I mean, the programming was incredible. I really believed
Heavy.
from a good part of my life that we were living this giant. I don't know when you came online, but we live in this giant freedom machine and the freest, greatest country. And we get some things wrong, but it's so free. And when you finally see that for what a crock of shit it actually is, it's a kind of a painful experience. And so that's why I was saying earlier, people will get angry at the film. That's a good thing, because I might have gotten angry at you when you first told me that. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. I worked on this film in Brazil years ago, this indie film in the middle of the jungle of Brazil with these people. And a lot of the cast were these anarchists. And I never even heard of this before. And they like, yeah, we're anarchists. I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, just means we don't have any rulers. There's no government. I'm like, I like got like disturbed. Like, what are you talking about? It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And then, it's so funny to think about that. But like when I woke up to I consider myself an American living in occupied land, and the occupiers of the federal regime. When I woke up to that fact, it was like losing the girlfriend that I was in love with.
Yep.
A girl was abusing me, but nevertheless, it was like, wow, it was a little painful there. You have to go through it.
100%,
but you're
man.
way better off if you're armed with the truth.
Correct. Yeah, the truth hurts and the truth heals.
That's right.
And I was raised in Americana, very small town in Northern California, like 5,000 people in it. So it was like picturesque, beautiful nature. Pledge allegiance. We play football, and every time before the game, use the flag and, we're going to go do this thing and all this stuff. And then to let go of that, be like, man, I'm not an American or I'm not a United States citizen. I'm a human being, and that's what's more inspiring and wonderful and empowering than being part of these little slave plantations. And they get us fighting up over each other, like in the 80s with the Cold War and the Russian against the Americans.
Yeah.
It's not the Russian people against the American people. It's the states and those psychopaths and those profiteers or warmongers who are mass murdering people, selling bombs and working out deals. So it's a very
organized crime. That's all it is. It's organized crime.
Organized crime. You have to pillage to take resources. And before it used to be the monarchy, which was the monarch was the head of the church and the head of the state. And he says, I'm here because God put me here. And then you can refer to Romans 13. It says, be a good slave. Look what the Bible says. So they use these institutions and mind control to basically like hamstring people, so people are like, no, God says we do it, or they're in charge. But I think now we're realizing, oh, I'm in charge of me, you're in charge of you. There's one rule: don't initiate harm against peaceful people. It's fucking simple. So let's just move forward, because and the kids get it too. And this is the one of the things I've noticed too, is that a lot of people don't have a moral code. Because if they taught morality in government schools or through any mainstream media, it would be obvious to see that government's a criminal entity, but they justify it. So this is to protect you. So we can rob you, take your stuff, and now we can, this is all legitimate because we say so.
Well, I mean, you think about that was one of the things that I learned so much during the 2020 thing, because I learned a lot. And one of the biggest things I learned was how important integrity is. How important integrity is, because if you look and you see so few people in any kind of area had any integrity, and you also saw how deep the organized crime of the state was, how deep their hands were. They're in the NFL, they're in sports ball, they're in the media hardcore, they're in, what is that guy Prouty wrote the book Secret Man? It's basically that once they got the printing of the money going, once they were able to just generate money out of thin air, that they basically have infiltrated every industry, and they've got people there. Okay, you want to be a famous actor? Tom Hanks? Okay, great, no problem. You're going to be a famous actor. We might come and need you to do something for us someday.
Yeah.
We might never hear from us again, but if we come and we need you to do something for us, you're going to do it.
Right.
Okay. So that's why when you see these people coming out, you go, what happened to this guy? Why is he such a coward? Why is he knowingly lying to the people about what's going on? On some level they're captured. Now, of course, there's instances where they have no integrity and they just want their money and their fame. But I'm telling you, a lot of those people are captured. And if you start looking at the history of a lot of these people, particularly in Hollywood, and you start seeing who their parents were and who their parents were involved with, and yada, 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 and you start to see the connections there. So we're trying to build this dissident cinema, and it can be dissident art outside of outside of that, outside of that system. And I can tell you, because I worked in Los Angeles for years, and there are a lot of people, I might even argue a majority of people, particularly the guys on set behind the camera, that agree with 100% with what we're saying. Many times they just don't really know it. They haven't thought about it. They just, or many times they do, and they just have to keep their mouth shut because life is so good there. The weather's perfect. The jobs pay a lot of money.
Exactly.
You know, so you're not gonna, they need it. There's no, you need an alternative place for them to go where they're going to be able to take that risk and take that loss and get that reward.
Right. Yeah. So they're making all this money in Hollywood, and that's nice. We all love to make some money. So where to
Perfect
go
weather.
next?
Yeah.
Perfect weather. Yeah, the beaches. So I think this is what we're discovering too, is that I like what I'm doing, and this is school system too. Okay, it's not that bad, but okay, it's kind of bad, but what's out there is scarier, right? So we want to open up a door where producers or actors or these type of investors are like, you know what, that's better. Would you make a comment about the Sound of Freedom? I know Sound of Freedom was kind of a well, I think they took $14 million, so it was a pretty well financed film, but they made, I think, over 200 million, almost 250. So what does that tell you about the market or what they did? Was that a marketing thing or was it a grassroots kind of
I think people are starving for even though that's kind of a different deal. I don't know much about that. Everybody's got something negative to say.
Yeah.
I don't know much about that production, to be honest with you. I haven't even seen it.
Okay.
Just because I can't, the child abuse thing.
Yeah.
Really, especially
it's heavy.
I have a kid. It's heavy. But people are starving for this stuff, man.
Yeah.
Starving for it. I mean, it's just like anything else. Nobody wants this that we have. Very few people actually want. Who would agree to this? Who would agree to this weird system where like there's a star chamber of people who wear these goofy robes, and if one guy votes 5-4, then the whole country's bound by the law. It's just ridiculous. The whole thing's moronic.
Yeah.
So people don't want this in general. People don't want this, but we just got to get it to their heads. We got to get it out there, and we got to show we can do it.
Yeah.
That's why I like the idea of shooting in El Salvador, my next film. I like with whatever's going on down there. It might be a situation where we've got to get out of here. And I lived in Los Angeles. I love Los Angeles. Just, I don't know what's going on there now is a disaster. It's depressing. I was there a couple months ago. It was so depressing. In Santa Monica, what a beautiful little town. It used to be working class construction workers, could have a little craftsman house, 4 or 5 kids. Everybody's running around playing outside, going to the beach. Now it's like these $950,000 houses. And nobody's talking to each other. There's homeless people all over the streets. Like, what is this, man? If I was mayor of that town, I'd round people up so quick and be like, your ass is going. And they need to bring back, I'm not going to get sidetracked. They need to bring back treatment centers, what we used to call nut houses. They don't have to be called nut. They need treatment centers where people go and say, look, either you're leaving or you've got to go into this treatment center and we got to take care of you. You can't just leave people out in the sidewalks. It's crazy. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked, but
well, this is another good point because I think there's a mental crisis on the planet right now, and I think you mentioned a little bit in the last few years we saw how sick people are because they don't know they own themselves, they don't know they're responsible for themselves, they think that words are violence, and in my research, you can say whatever you want, you just can't make threats of violence against people. And other than that, deal with it. Like the comedy world, thankfully, some of the people are starting to say some stuff, but comedy's an art, movie directing and acting, this stuff is an art that affects culture versus politics. They say politics is downstream of culture. So comedy, films, music, dance, this type of stuff that, you're creating is the way we change the world, is putting these ideas out there, and then they'll come up and say, well, what's the system that's if the government is so bad, the government's a criminal organization, what's the next thing? I say, let's just not initiate harm against peaceful people. Let's not use threats of violence. Would that be okay?
Well, here's a
And
perspective. Maybe the world doesn't need change. Maybe they've changed the world and we need just to bring it back to what it's supposed to be. They've taken
sure.
it, they've put, like we were talking earlier about integrity. You go through these government schools and you go through this government college, and then maybe you get your master's degree, doctors, for example, and
Yeah.
you get your credentials. It's all about credentials. And they taught you what they want you to learn, and you have to push what they taught you, or you can't keep your credentials, so you can't work
Hmm.
in their system. So now you're making a bunch of money. You've got your name tag, you've got your country club membership, you've got
Yeah.
this, that, and the other
Status,
thing. And it's,
prestige. Hmm.
yeah. And so you're not going to have the integrity. Very few doctors, Dr. Kaufman, he had the balls to come out and say, I'm not doing this anymore. And he talks
Yeah.
about that all the time, credentialism.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, if you tell the truth and you have integrity, you're going to win in the long run. Even if you
Hmm.
get your ass handed to you for a while, you're
Yeah.
going to win in the long run because you're not going to be dead inside.
Hmm.
And I don't want to say the guy's name, but there's a comedian who's hilarious. He doesn't really swear. And I saw him on Bill Maher's podcast, the one where
Hmm.
he's in like the Club Random.
Hmm.
He was so depressed. He's from the Northeast, kind of the Midwest Northeast, from a city. And he was so depressed. And I know why, because everything that he's done, he's got a TV show and he's done a film. It's completely propagandized. I always call it that
Hmm.
woke moment when they're coming at you with the propaganda and you got to kind of eat it if you want to keep watching the show. Like, what is this
Yeah.
bullshit?
Yeah.
And they're doing that. And it's like, I know this guy doesn't believe in any of this shit. He's an
Mm.
Italian guy from Chicago. I know he doesn't. I probably just gave away. I know you don't believe in this shit.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I don't know the guy, but it feels like I bet you that there's a lot of people like that are just not doing the kind of. I was that guy. I was doing work that I, wasn't believing in.
Mm.
That was kind of
Right.
what happened. Is I just made a decision. I'm not gonna. I'm from now on. I'm doing the kind of work I want to do. And literally, this film opened up like 6 months later. Like that, I just had this inspiration to go to that conference, which led me to here.
Mm.
So, and I'm not looking back. And that's the thing, when you have an opening like this, like we've had, there's no going backwards.
Yeah.
It's not like you become red pilled and you see the world for what it is, then you go backwards. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Once your
It,
mind is cracked, there's no going. It's just like taking the red pill
it's
in the
exactly
Matrix.
like it's
There's no going
exactly the
back.
rev. I mean, I
Yeah.
would say voluntarism is maybe the most powerful red pill in my life, which is self-ownership and respect for self-ownership. I was looking for this truth, and I didn't have anybody around me, of course, that knew these ideas. And so Ron Paul, and then Anarchapulco, and then other freedom events, and Larkin Rose, and Passio, and Berwick, and Spooner, and Rothbard, and eventually you find this collective mimesis of community and authors and creators who were saying this 150 years ago. Spooner being the example, the
Spooner's the
constant
man.
the
Spooner's the man.
Constitution of No Authority, written in 1870. I'm reading this thing, and you can get it for free on an audiobook online,
Yeah. Yeah.
BitChute. I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew it. I'm not bound to a contract I didn't agree to, and you can't delegate rights that you don't have yourself. And like some of these things that he put in there so lucidly explained, and there's this almost a spiritual experience for me to like, okay, the chains have come off in my mind now,
Yeah.
and now it's
It,
like, okay, to build this, for
well, it's
my
funny
own
you bring that
self.
up, because once you do that, when you try to go back, like the actor I was just shitting on, that's when you become deeply, deeply depressed,
Yeah.
because you are crossing God, if you will. Now
Hmm.
you are crossing your soul,
Hmm.
and you can't do that. Not if you want to live a decent life. You can't. You have to eat it, because then you're taking this temporary illusion way too seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not
Yes.
sitting in the real. You're sitting in the temporary.
That's right.
And that's when you suffer, and suffer dearly.
Hmm.
And what
Yeah.
I think about my good, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to tell you, actually, you bring up Spooner, the guy who played Mr. Jones in this, Lee Gallman. He's Legal Man.
Okay.
He's got a podcast called The Quash. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Uh-uh.
You got to check out The Quash. But that's how
Okay.
I found him. I was actually a Patreon on this podcast, and I just out of the
Hmm.
blue. It's a long story, but I contacted
Hmm.
him and we hit it off. But he's a Spooner guy, and he has 30. He does all of. He's done. What was the one called? No. no treason.
Yeah, no treason, the
He's
Constitution,
got
no
like
authority.
25 podcasts going over. No, he was a lawyer for 30 years. He's one of the
Wow.
top lawyers in the country. Yeah, and so he totally knows the system inside and out, and that's his kind of what he's trying to teach people is like what a complete scam the system is and how much what you think it is isn't what it
Wow.
is. So he does Spooner. Now he's doing Spooner's letter to Grover Cleveland. Terrible
Mm-hmm.
title, but it's incredible. He
Mm.
wrote a letter to Grover Cleveland, and I mean, the guy was back in the day, like when it was nowhere near as controlled as it is today. I mean, they were technically, I mean, compared to what we have, way freer. And he was still, when you read that guy's stuff, I mean, there's no arguing because he was a lawyer too, even though
That's
he
right.
didn't.
And he was a entrepreneur who set up a mailing system to compete
Yep.
with the United States Post Office, and
Yeah.
they shut him down. And so he saw what was going on. And there's another one of his essays is called "Vices Are Not Crimes." And this is what's interesting. You mentioned El Salvador, so we can jump into El Salvador. But right now in Argentina, there's this new president, Javier Milei, who quotes, I think, Rothbard and Mises, but he's talking about legalized drugs and prostitution. So you may not like drugs and prostitution, but it's immaterial what you like because this person owns themselves. They're allowed to do what they want to their body and contract other consenting adults with whatever they want to do. So this idea of self-ownership, personal responsibility, and Spooner says vices are not crimes. So someone can be addicted to drugs or have this crazy bad lifestyle, but that's not a crime. Just because somebody's a Christian or a Muslim or Hindu, whatever, and you disagree with alcohol or pornography or whatever, yeah, it might not be tasteful, but he's not harming anybody to participate in a voluntary interaction with another consenting adult. And this was, again, 150 years ago. It's like, so these ideas, they've been trying to suppress these ideas. And my contention or suggestion is that Spooner's more relevant today than he was 150 years ago, because now we have these devices. And you mentioned this gentleman who has a podcast, and he's talking about Spooner and going over these things. It's like, where has this information been? We have been looking for this information. Well, they've
Yeah.
tried to hold it down, and
They're not
now
going
we
to teach
got
you. They're not going to teach you that in schools. No. And that's the
absolutely.
guy who plays Mr. Jones in the film. Actually, his name's Lee Gallman. Well, that's his stage name. But Spooner stuff is timeless. All this stuff is timeless. I want to take the other side of that vices aren't crimes thing, because the other side of that is if you're going to have this sort of self-organizing society, then the people are going to be responsible for their own self-defense and their own protection of whatever kind of order they want. And so you can have that, but if you don't have what I'm saying, you're going to have what you have in San Francisco. You're not allowed to defend yourself. You're not allowed to protect your neighborhood. So yeah, you can have all that, but you can also have a neighborhood where, like, we don't want that shit here. Yeah. You don't bring that on these streets. You want to do that, you go somewhere else. You have to have order. If you want order, you have to have a place where families can propagate, the children can play in the streets, and you don't have to have government cops to do that. They don't actually give that to you because they don't actually work for you. Yeah. Okay. If their bread is buttered from the government, they work for the government. All you have to do is look at 2020 and you can look at Chicago. Everybody's business is getting burned to the ground. And what were the cops doing? Guarding the mayor's house. That's who they work for. So it doesn't matter. You have a good friend who's a cop, or your dad was a cop, and your grandpa was a cop, and all this other stuff. The system is designed where they work for the state. If security is relied upon by the state and not the people, you're going to have what you have today.
Yeah, right. Great point. Yeah, the government cops protect the government and the government officials. So if you want to have
pensions, they're going to get their pensions. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's the other side of that, because we always get crap from people like, well, you're going to have just San Francisco. And it's like, no, we believe in order. Yeah. Right. We just know that we're responsible for our own order, and we're going to have the order that we want and a society that we want if we take, like adults, responsibility for our security, responsibility for our own neighborhoods. If we're going to have a security team, let's say you are a good cop, you should start seriously considering the fact that these governments are collapsing. And you should go to different municipalities and say, instead of paying these cops this much money, hire my security team and pay me that much money. And guess what? I will serve you. I will actually protect and serve you because I actually work for you. And by the way, if I kill one of your citizens or if I abuse one of your citizens, you fire my ass because I actually work for you.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, that's right. That's the one-to-one relationship. If you want pizza, you call up Domino's. If you want, protective services, there are none. I mean, actually, what's interesting is
you call Domino's. I'm Italian. I don't call Domino's. But go ahead.
yeah, you call it
I'm
Levitos
just
or
kidding.
something. Yeah.
I'll rock some Domino's now and again. I'm just joking.
But like when you want something, you call that service up versus like 911 is fire, emergency, security, like everything. It's like, why is everything all clumped into one?
Right.
Because the government realizes that's what controls people. Their safe mind of safety is okay, 911. But what if we want protection? We call it protection people. We want emergency ambulance. We call it ambulance. Private services, and there's actually more, I believe, armed private security individuals like for protection in the US than actual cops. So just like the arbitration services are now surpassing the court services, people are starting to find ways to solve their problems as conflict resolution without calling the monopoly centralized entity that has qualified immunity and doesn't even do what they say. A side note,
and unqualified security and unqualified security. The training the police go through is a joke. I mean, I know there's probably great cops out there, ex-Marines or whatever, that actually know how to use guns, but they're not trained in. If I go out somewhere now, I mean, I've been around and somebody's causing problems, I can de-escalate it real quick. I used to run the door in clubs. I'm from Pittsburgh. I've been in physical altercations my whole life. I de-escalate things very, very quickly.
Yep.
They don't know how to do that. Most of those guys. But if you had a cop, like what was that? What were the riots at in St. Louis? What was that neighborhood? When they killed that kid, it was like attacking the cop. What's the name of that neighborhood? It was
I don't remember the neighborhood.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know the guy. I'm trying to think of the guy's name.
Well, they basically got rid of the cops.
Yeah.
In that neighborhood because they had so many problems. And I kept thinking, God, if there was a guy who was like an ex-cop who knew that the whole system was a scam, but was really good at their job and really wanted to serve the people, what an opportunity to get a crew, go in there and say, look, you were paying these guys some probably way more than they should have been paid. We don't need 20 police cruisers. We need 5, and we're going to go around the neighborhood. We're going to know everybody. We're going to know all the business. We're going to know all you guys. And when you have a problem, you're going to come to us and we're going to protect you and serve you. And we're going to help you protect yourself.
That's right. Because we all want peace in the neighborhood.
That's right.
And one thug bully, we want to identify that person and ostracize them or get them out of here, neutralize the threat. But most people, they want to live honorable, good lives, but they're not sure about responsibility and how to engage. And I think the sad thing is that many people don't know their neighbors now too, right? So now they can't even form some type of like network or neighborhood watch program because the government's going to take care of it. And it's just like this crutch that you're leaning on versus like, no, I'm responsible. You're responsible. Let's figure out a text thread or let's figure out some app that we can get on so that we don't have to call the cops because you call the cops after the crime has occurred and then they show up and shoot your dog or, just commit some heinous crime on camera and there's no accountability because of the state system.
They tell me what happened. Tell me the story of what happened to your stuff. That's the cops. Tell me the story. What happened? It's like the idea that the cops are protecting me. I've never in my life had a cop protect me from anything. Like, what am I? I'm in trouble somewhere. Some cop's just going to jump out and jump in front of the person. Like
exactly.
You need something. You should have some organizational capability, but the idea that you're going to get it from the state when in fact, anybody can look around and look at a lot of these like blue states and see that you're not allowed to protect yourself anymore. I mean, there's that cat that caught that woman being abused recently in the subway and shot him or killed him, or the kid that choked that guy out. I mean, they're literally persecuting, and we all know this, they're persecuting the people that are actually doing justice because that's a threat to the state's power. And that's all they care about. So this fantasy that the state is there to protect you and serve you is a fantasy. It is a control system. It's there to get power and resources and take control. That's it. All the other stuff, the roads, that's all window dressing.
Yeah.
That's all window dressing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their primary. And so when you understand, when you judge the state based on power and control, that's your metric, you can see that it's not broken and there's no fixing it. This is what it is. It is the most successful, powerful, our government, the US federal regime, is the most successful, powerful entity in the history of the world. This is what it is. This is what it is. It's not broken. How is it broken? It's all over. It's got 800 bases or whatever all over the world. How is it broken? Right. It's horrible. It's fucking horrible. Don't get me wrong.
Man, the human suffering, the human loss caused by the federal government, the funding the Federal Reserve, the military industrial complex. I mean, even just in the last, 2 or 3 years now with Ukraine, you see them, I think it's over $100 billion now that United States government has given to Ukraine. And like, that's just going in the pockets of the
it's all money. It's money laundering. Yeah, it's money laundering.
Probably going.
What about the 400,000? I heard fighting age men have gotten massacred over there. Like, just think about those numbers, man.
Jeez. Yeah, whatever side it is, it's like it's a tragedy. And because what are they fighting for? Nothing. Their conscription into this mass murder for what? And it seems like it is this start of World War III. My little bit of research into like the banking, the banksters, the Rothschilds, they have own a lot of central banks around the world, and including the US and the Bank of England. So they're trying to consolidate this financial power, because as soon as they can print money, they can just buy up everybody. And a lot of people will sell out for, millions of dollars or whatever the number is. And these guys are just in the back printing it, file, print. Oh yeah, we got some money. Here you go. It's just like no tide of silver or gold or precious, limited scarce resources, but they're just making this stuff up. So yes, I think the 20th century was the most bloody century of all time. And it's because of the Federal Reserve, because you're able to fund these wars instead of taxing the people. You're just able to print this money out and fund these things. And so now this is because of statism. So I think this is why Jones Plantation and these types of films revealing this truth are so relevant, because this is causing mass human carnage around the globe in the name of Ukraine or US or Russia or Israel or whatever. It's like, just stop killing people, you morons. Killing people does not solve a problem. It creates a problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's a religion, but it's a satanic death cult, but it is a religion.
Yes.
I mean, imagine if people in school, kids in school, were taught natural law, taught the difference between what you have inside is your personal decisions. You have choice, but then there's immutable natural laws in the universe that you cannot break or you will suffer from. They don't want us to know that information.
Oh yeah.
It's a subversion of everything. I heard this great saying, sexual liberation is a form of political subversion, or sexual degeneration is a form of political subversion. So pornography and all the degeneracy in the pornography, it's a form of subversion. It's a form of turning your life upside down and trying to go against natural law and destroying you in the process and making you powerless.
Yes.
Childless. I mean, if I had known what I know now, I'd have 10 kids. If I'd known what I never thought I wanted to have kids. And then that was part of my opening when I had my daughter. And I was like, I literally, the day she was born, I looked into her eyes and I was like, what the fuck have I been doing? I don't have kids. And that's, I started to reverse engineer my life.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of my awakening.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations. Yeah. Having children has got to be one of the most rewarding, fulfilling, and important things to do, to transfer this truth, right? Because it's intergenerational. That was another big aha moment for me, was like, wow, this thing's been going on for a long time, brainwashing people with the Jones Plantation ideology of slavery, but legitimate slavery. And it's through the schools and my parents and even my grandparents. So there's this slow boil of humanity getting cooked, and all of a sudden we're like, man, we are getting fried in here. And finally, we're able to identify what it is. It's the state. It's the coercive monopoly organization in all of our neighborhoods. And to your point, I'm sure there are good cops. I have some, friends that I grew up with,
Oh yeah.
and the good guys, but they're just stuck in this little view of what is, and they will do probably anything to get that $150,000 paycheck.
They will
With
do whatever they are told. And they will do
Yeah,
whatever they are told. The few, I mean, look at 2020. That's all you need to do is look at what actually
yeah,
just happened. You don't have to guess
yeah,
anymore. There
that's
was
right.
maybe one or two cops. They got fired. They all stood the line and did what they were told.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they just look like mall cops at that point, security guards. And you're like, where's the honor? Well, the honor's worn off over the last few decades of what is the Andy Griffith show, and like do, hey, we're the good
Yeah.
guys, like
Yeah.
that would be cool. If that was the situation, that would be cool. That's kind of how it was in my hometown a little bit. But when you give people power, they will use that power, and you give them complete immunity, they're going to do that. One of the funny stories I had during the pandemic was I went to a post office, masks recommended, a sign on the wall. This is what it says. So I didn't wear a mask. The long story short, I got arrested for trespassing, and they never filed charges against me. I ended up suing them through federal court, and the case just got dismissed because they said the post office is private property. They had probable cause to arrest me, and the cops have qualified immunity. And so, like, it's just all angles
There you
from like a
go.
corrupt system.
There you
There's
go. There you
no
go. There's your
justice.
great court system. Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's what legal man's always talking about. I was telling you about earlier, Mr. Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, the only people that think the court system works are the people that have never dealt with them before.
Yeah.
He's like, as soon as you deal with the court system, you know right away, because the only person who has stake in the game, the only person that's any skin in the game is you. The prosecutors can throw at you whatever they want. They don't get in trouble. The judge can do whatever he wants, doesn't get in trouble. The defense can suck and there's no trouble, but you're the only one who has stake in the game. You're the one who's got to spend all the money to do what you got to do. You're the one who can, if they come after you, can lose everything, get thrown in prison.
Mm.
If it turns out they just made this shit up, you have
Mm.
no recourse.
Yep.
So yeah, it's Larkin, because they've gotten so crazy. This has gotten so insane now. They're openly sodomizing each other in the Senate and everything. Larkin thinks that we're right around the corner from at least major pockets of voluntarism.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's pretty white pilled? I'm pretty black. I have my moments. Some days I'm black, some days I'm white.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I have seen it with my own eyes. So I've seen in Acapulco for the first 5 or 6 years go from 120 people to like 2,000 people. And it was, from 30 different countries. It's slower than I want, but I've been to Pork Fest, the Jackalope Freedom Festival, Anarcha Vegas, all these different things. So I've seen it, and there is grassroots coming, but it's the media that's so important, I think. And some of the songs. Did you ever meet an artist down there in Arizona named Grant Presence?
No. Who's that?
Maybe I'll connect you with him, but he's talking about
Please.
the amazing music, amazing artists and skill and talent and editing and everything. But he's voluntarious, so it's like that's what he sings about in liberation. So this is the stuff, like for example, like Bob Marley. Bob Marley died, what's this, 40 years ago now? But his music still lives, so Bob Marley lives.
Yeah.
George Carlin was calling out the whole thing of it's a big club and you
Yeah.
ain't in it. You and I are not.
Yeah.
So even though he's passed, his spirit and his art lives on through this media format of video and comedy and art and these kind of things. So I think that's why I'm so grateful for you and Larkin and the whole team with Jones Plantation, because this film is gonna rock humanity, I feel. And I am
Let's hope.
hopeful, and I do see people awakening. And it's just the question that I had to overcome was, okay, if government's illegitimate, how's society gonna run? And
Mhm.
so I found Murray Rothbard wrote a book in 1970 titled "For a New Liberty," and he goes through how everything would work based on incentives and voluntary interactions and free market. Like the government schools are all compulsive monopoly. That's why they suck. But the private schools or little homeschool co-ops that have a tiny budget, they're winning because they're better and it's more respectful, and there's morality and honor and integrity and these kind of things. So that's where the hope is. I think the hope is, for me, is intergenerational. I think we're going to see some crazy stuff the next, well, who knows, the next 12 months. But before this 2030 agenda that Klaus Schwab and these United Nations people have, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at us. So
Yep.
this is, I think, we're going to try to raise up our frequency, make good relationships, make good content, and let people know there's a better way than coercive monopoly situations, because it's criminal, it's wrong, it's violating the natural law, the basic moral code, everything of history, in the name of safety, security, and everything that you guys laid out in the film. So I have a lot of hope and strength. But it's sometimes I realize that we're the chosen ones, Andrew and Larkin and Jeff and all these people out there, Derek and John, everybody. Like, there's nobody coming. That was the big aha. It's like, wow. Like at an Acapulco, you see these are the guys. These are the people. David Icke and all these other people. Like, they've been speaking this stuff. So the better that I can articulate and help create some of the stuff that you got going on, of getting this message out there, and then a solution message, because I've heard of so many people, and I'll, be going to, events shortly, and they'll say problem, problem, problem. I said, do you have any solutions? Because I'm looking for some solutions for the children, the grandchildren, because banging our head up against this wall for, another 30 or 40 years, it's not going to work, man. And I think it's like time to realize the urgency of freedom and self-ownership, and creating this type of media and art so that we can show the future for some of the normies out there. Like, my job's not to save anybody, I don't feel, at this point. If you haven't awakened to what's going on, or at least be suspicious about what's happening on the planet right now, there's nothing I can do. And I can show you all the primary documents. They want to have a global totalitarian state, and chopping, the genitals off of children. Like, hello, crazy folk. Like, it's time to get into the game. And, that's what you're doing. And so many good artists are doing that. So in a roundabout way, I am hopeful, but I know what you're talking about. The media, like the mainstream news, I feel sometimes if I believe it, that's when I'm like, oh man, humanity's not going to make it. But when I talk with you and I go to other freedom events, podcasts and things, I'm like, okay, we are going to get there. Even if some of these people are still left in statism, and they're, trying to vote in their hero or their savior, eventually they got to realize that this guy's not going to save us. Ultimately, it's going to be between us and our neighbors. And we're going to say, hey, guys, we got to have a meeting. Shit is getting real around here. And we got to figure out how to move forward as a community, because there's safety and strength in numbers. So I think there's an opportunity to start building community. And this film is a great way. This is one way I brought the community together. We watched it. I think we had, I don't know, 8 or 10 people, at my house. And it was just like, have the film show, have a conversation. What'd you like about it? How did you, respond to it? And it starts to have this dialogue, because we have to talk about it. We can't let the truth go unspoken when it's just here in plain daylight.
I think most people know in their souls this is not right. Something's wrong. But they just, I don't believe most people watch them. I always hear this all the time. Everybody watches the news and believes the news. I don't think they do. I think there's a smaller and smaller group of people. I think a lot of older people.
Yep.
But it is a thing where the overwhelming majority of the people are not going to maneuver until there's somewhere to go.
Yes.
So, like, in my own little way, I'm hoping we could start building this and within the film community and maybe the media community, and we can start providing somewhere for people to go. I'm trying to build my company up and make it a large production company. And I think that, building, like you said, smaller communities, you can do that. Larkin's got this little piece of property in North Arizona. They're creating something there. And on a bigger scale, and I think this is coming, it depends on how people embrace it and how it goes down. I do think that secession, massive secession is coming.
Yeah.
And if people embrace it and understand what an incredibly awesome opportunity it's going to be, that there's literally no reason why all these states should be under the same regime, and that all the states will trade. You'll still be able to travel. You'll be way safer because there's not going to be one centralized federal government that can be bought and paid for that puts you in way more danger. I mean, would you rather invade 50 countries or just go and buy off the central government? So I think that's massive secession, I hope, is coming. And I think if people embrace it, it could be an incredible opportunity. But yeah, I think we're going to have to go through it a little bit, especially the more people that are just stay scared and don't have any integrity, and you're going to suffer just like you do in life. When you're a coward, you suffer in life. It's a disease. When you're a coward, your life is miserable and you suffer. That's just the way it is. And it's it's interesting. We'll see what happens. I hope people with the film. I love film. It's one of the great loves of my life. And I love crazy films. And I mean, there's no really a film like mine that just totally makes fun of government. But first and foremost, I hope people watch it and just think it's entertaining. You know, I've heard somebody call it edutainment. Like, oh, it gives me like the willies. Like, ugh, no, it's not edutainment. Maybe you learn, you think about it, you learn something. They live. Jeff Berman always calls it they live of our generation. Remember They Live, that goofy kind of B movie?
I love that movie.
I'm not saying that's true, but I just like what he's talking about there. Everybody's seen that. Everybody's seen that movie with the sunglasses, with Roddy Piper and everything.
So good. Actually, I just saw this, I don't know, it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it's been around, 30 years or something, it is a cult classic. And
it's a classic. Yeah.
And it's like the Matrix of the generation, it's like right on the button, and it's, the lens is so clear, obey, consume, this, and it's true, and that's why I think it struck a chord, and why Jones Plantation struck a chord, because we need truth. We are starving for the truth. We know what we're seeing is not true. I just saw a poll recently that said over 80% of Americans do not have high confidence in the news. So to your point, it's only like, I was gonna say 18 or 14% has high confidence in the news, which
that's
is
too high. That's 18% too high.
Yeah, I don't know what those people are watching, but the other 80%, like, you should not have trust in the news. And this is where the economics comes in, is you should understand that everybody has an agenda, either make money or deceive you or something like that, like corporations and politicians. And what we want is people to be honest with their motives, honest with their things. Hey, this is what we want you to buy. This is an offer. You can reject it, versus this subtle, like the BLM movement, and dividing people over race, or the transgender. These are all attacks on families. They're attacks on unity. They're attacks on the self-evident truth, like the transgender stuff. Like, you can have a penis and be a girl. Like, that is completely against any type of common sense. And they're trying
also
to
the people that fall for that are operating on a very low level of consciousness. And so they are completely ego-based people. So that's how they're getting suckered into that, because it's an opportunity for them to buy into that psyop and then convince themselves through either victimhood that they're special, or because they're embracing this transgender horseshit psyop that somehow they're special. They're the new people. We're evolving now. And you're just an overweight person who hasn't achieved anything in your life, and you're trying to get a shortcut, and you've been psyoped and your mind is gone. They've got your brain, and they want to castrate you. 100%. They want to castrate you. It's just it's a modern technological psyop version of what Genghis Khan would do, where they would go into a town, kill the men, take the women, take all the weak men, castrate the men, throw makeup on them and turn them into their slaves and have their way with them. That's was a very common practice when you conquered a people. And it's basically taking that same thing, but now it's the modern version of it. And these people are conquered. They're conquered. So they're gone. There's nothing we can do about that. We don't need them. But we've got to lead the way. And we got to do what we can do. We got to do what we can do.
That's right. Yeah. So we start now. We start wherever anybody is. Let's talk a little bit before you wrap up here. Just
Mhm.
how did you get into film? And maybe just like how did you get to the point? Because it takes a lot of work to direct and do all these things. Like that's a really complex career. So how did you get there? Like what was the beginning process of your interest in film, and maybe some of the steps that you got or took to get where you are now?
Well, mine's unusual because I owned a parking company in Atlanta that's still there to this day. It's got a different name now, but um, and I had dabbled around in acting a little bit, and I was writing a script for some reason. I don't know why. I still have it. I want to make it like 3 films from now.
Nice.
It's in my hometown of Pittsburgh, but
Mm.
um, I was talking to a kid who was in film school about my script, and I was telling him how I wanted to shoot it and where I was going to put the camera. And he's like, "Dude, you're a director. You should look into that."
Mm.
And this was like in my 30s.
Mm.
So at the time, this is 15, 17 years ago. I still thought like you should go to school, you
Yeah.
know. Plus, I was older. So, anyways, I ended up selling my business and I got into grad school, and I went to grad school for filmmaking, and I had never even picked up a camera before. I didn't even know what aperture was when I went into grad school. Like I didn't even know what it was on a camera.
Mm.
It
Mm.
was so far removed from anything artistic or filmmaking. I was like a pretty kind of a Chad business guy, you know,
Yeah.
and and it just, you know, besides me transforming, we did our first project was this you know, this little short films or whatever, and it was just, I mean, I'm not trying to talk out my ass. I tell you when I suck at something, but my project was so far superior to anybody's at school, and it was the first time I'd done anything where I was like, it just felt like it was so right, like
Mm.
this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, a long story short, I worked in Atlanta for years. I worked in LA for years. And here I am. I know there's
Nice.
a lot more to the story, but I don't want to bore your audience.
So you did go to grad school, and then you started making short films. Did you do advertisements, or what's the portfolio got to be, to get
Oh,
to
I mean, for
feature
me,
films?
I've done everything, man. Everything you can think of. Now, most of my work has been editing. So even learning that, like understanding collaboration, so much about learning what ego is and what consciousness is and what, you know, the difference between your physical body and who you really are and all these things.
Hmm.
That was a process as far as me also growing as a filmmaker. Because when I first started, I thought I could do everything. And I was really worried about credits and I did this job. And then I don't even care. I could care less. And understanding that you can't do all the work. And then what I, you know, and making a decision. I worked at this studio in Los Angeles. I was the post-production supervisor at this studio in Beverly Hills. And I did this documentary called Lord of the Freaks. And it was like a director for hire kind of thing. And it had this like very expensive red carpet screening at the Egyptian
Oh wow.
theater. And you know, it was a live television. and and I just was like 10 years in, and I was like, wow, I started this. I didn't even know what aperture was. And I'm standing on Hollywood Boulevard at the Egyptian Theater having a screening of my own film. And by the
Mm.
way, I'm very thankful for it. It was an incredible experience. Nothing negative. Me personally, it just didn't feel right. I don't know why. I didn't even walk the red carpet, which is
Mm.
crazy. They were pissed off at me. Like, why didn't you walk the red carpet? And I eventually just left. Like 6 months later, I left LA and I came here, and I worked for this virtual reality company where I was like the head of production, and we were getting stock in the company and we were going places and blah blah blah. And one day, and then I did this virtual reality experience for them that won like this award at CineQuest up by where you live, up in San
Mm.
Jose.
Hmm.
Huge, like probably the biggest VR festival in the world. And like my film showed next to this guy who was the first Oscar nominated VR film, which was a great, I can't remember the name of it, but it was an incredible film.
Mm.
But like 2 weeks later, they came in and like, we don't have any more money. You're all fired. So I end up like a week later running a forklift at my buddy's warehouse for $17 an hour.
Mm.
And I got really depressed. And I just started, like, I would do the job with the forklift and I would listen to audiobooks, and I got really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you think you just failed and it's over. I don't
Yeah,
know. It felt like I was
definitely.
dying.
Yep.
And you got to look in the mirror and reverse engineer what happened.
Yeah.
And about 6 months into it, I realized, okay, I knew I started late, and I knew that there was going to be this moment where I was way older than most people that have their 10 year. At 10 years, you usually have a career kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
happen for these kinds, especially these kind of careers. And I told myself when I started, this is going to happen to you in your 40s. So prepare yourself. But I forgot. And I remembered, I want to do this for 30 more years, God willing. Right.
Yeah.
So I said, this is just going to be a blip, a zit on the ass in time, that little time that I wasn't working.
That's right.
And that was when something snapped, and I just made a decision because, one, I knew I could work. I like work. So I'm like, I have a 400 square foot apartment. I got no money. I'm in my mid 40s. Everything's not worked,
Yeah.
but I can do this shit. I'm here. I can eat. I can work. I got enough money to give my daughter.
Mm.
So I don't care. I'll do this. So I just made a decision. I'm going to do the work I want to do. I'm going to start my own company, and that's it. And I'm not taking on shit that I don't want to do anymore. Because so many times in my career, I taken on these editing jobs, these projects I hated to make money, and then I still was broke. I didn't get anywhere. It was just stupid. And literally, like 2 months later was when the conference came up, and I was like, I just had this, that which cannot be seen, without which nothing would exist. You just get this vision, this image. I was like, I got to go down to Mexico. I don't have enough money. I borrowed some money off my friend who owned the warehouse company, and me and Doug went down there on a shoestring, and then here I am, literally 3 years later.
That's glorious. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think people can take away that, well, you are doing what you love now, right? You're doing projects that really fill you up, and I think people can sense that. Well, that's probably the secret to your consistency and persistency with this project. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, it's the idea is, like, one of the things that people like about the film is that there's no bullshit in there. So, like, my thing is that I'm never going to sell out the people, like, because I've been through the abuse. I failed. Like, dude, when I was telling you I was running a forklift for $17 an hour, I was 48 years old. It was like I was 26 years old. I mean, it was over for 6 months for me. I mean, just walking around like dead inside. It was over.
Yeah.
And it's never over till it's over.
That's right.
And so for me, there's no way I'll go back to that forklift if I have to. I don't give a damn. I'll go out in the streets, and I'll make a film about a guy who made a film that didn't work and ended up on the streets and then made another film, So I'm not gonna sell the people out. I'm on the side of the people. I'm gonna make films that is the film that I want to make. I'm gonna put whoever the hell I want to put in the film. I'm not gonna ever worry about the politics, and we'll see what happens. But I could go and do work. I'm a great forklift operator, so I'll go deliver pizzas. I don't give a damn. You know what I mean? I've been there. I've seen it. There's Ben Franklin. You never know with these stories who it really was, because they said Seneca the elder, the Roman philosopher, the Stoic. They also said Ben Franklin at the same story, but they said Ben Franklin used to once a year go to this cabin he had in the middle of nowhere, and he would wear his worst outfit. He would bring a loaf of bread, and the thing had no bed. In the middle of winter, he'd go there and he'd sleep on the floor and eat bread, a loaf of bread every day, and just sit there and have nothing. And he did it to remind himself that he should never sell out his integrity, because he can sleep on a floor and eat a loaf of bread a day, and he'll be fine. Because once you do that, and once you suck it up and you let all that stuff go, and you end up in as low as you can, well, you can always go lower, but when you're in a very bad spot, you realize I can get through this. It's not the end of the world,
It's beautiful. It's almost like life is the gift.
Yeah.
We had a great conversation. There's so much more to talk about, but I think we should probably wrap up here shortly. But I think a good way to sign off would be to tap into what you said earlier about the ego and the spirit of who we really are, or something, because I think the spiritual stuff is coming through. Whatever people believe in, that's great, but I'm convinced too that we are spiritual beings that well, I'll let you kind of share what your thoughts are, but just the fact that I'm not my body, and I have a body, I live in the body, but there's something magical and beautiful happening, on earth through my body. But you want to
You're a
share about
traveler in your body. You're a temporary traveler in your body. You're
it's what it,
bound by your body. But when you talk about like Christ or Buddha, their whole shtick was being unbound, where
mm,
they lived in union with God their whole lives. And
mm,
so the easiest way to look at this is a really cool trick is if you want to understand the fact that you are not your brain is just this computer that people say, I like to think, I think your brain thinks for you. That's the problem, is everybody's consciousness is trapped inside the brain. And it's the programming of the brain for what you went through as a kid, and your fear of the past and your fear of the future, and you're not present and you're not outside your brain using your brain as a computer. And by the way, I do the same thing. I mean, your body there's what, 30 trillion microorganisms in your stomach alone. Like, you're
right.
a civilization and
Yeah.
your consciousness. But the one little trick, if you ever want to try this, is if you sit and you're by yourself and you just close your eyes, first thing you're going to know is your brain is going a mile a minute.
Mm,
But pay attention to your thoughts and note the first thought that you have. What was it? And then ask yourself, who had the thought? So if there's a thought and there's you, there's not two of you in there.
right.
Who saw the thought? Who, where did the thought come from? Who saw the thought? You saw the thought. If I crawl inside you right now, I'm not going to find Dave inside there hanging out.
Yeah.
Your consciousness animating this body.
Mm-hmm.
You are not your physical body. And that's important because your body is a beautiful thing, but it's death, where your consciousness is infinite life.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand what you really are, then you're way less afraid of all of this illusion around you.
Yeah.
This table that is hard, yeah, but really it's just millions of molecules moving very fast to give you illusion of solidity. It's all just a big illusion, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's beautiful. It is. This is what it is. The illusions are falling apart now. We were taught to consume and collect and possess all these things, and it's like we have the greatest possession in this body. It seems to me, to have breath, to have oxygen, and the fact they were trying to take away our ability to breathe the last few years was like,
Yeah,
this is like red flags. Everybody, hey,
that's a
there's
big deal. That's a big deal covering my face. That's a big deal. People say, what do you put it on?
exactly.
I say, one, I don't need to. It doesn't work. It's unnecessary. And I'm not a fucking German Shepherd. I want to breathe the air and take the sun in. This is
I would
my planet.
I would tell people, I said, I would plead with them. I say, I can't breathe with the mask on. Oh, you have to wear it anyways. You're like, you are gone, dude. Like,
Yeah.
where is your humanity?
Yeah, we could get sidetracked in this, but it's like that whole thing is like, does the mask work? Yeah. Then what do you care if I have one on? If yours works, doesn't make. You can't expect it to make sense.
Correct.
You had some hilarious videos during that whole time. I've seen some of your videos where you're.
Oh, good.
You do some ballsy stuff. That's fun. You're funny stuff, man.
I appreciate that, man. But well, you mentioned cowardice, and maybe we can end on courage too, because people appreciate what I was doing, and I said, well, I am more afraid to be silent at this point because it's broad freaking daylight, like tyranny, slavery, open, and I was in Santa Cruz and San Jose, these super status lefty places. So I think the courage is to, well, it's okay to have fear, but it's not okay to let fear dominate us.
Right.
Like
what do you do with it?
Yeah, what do you do with it? Transmute it, transform it, and put it out
Nobody
there.
doesn't have fear. Everybody has. John Jones walks in the ring. He's scared to death.
Yep.
Well, good. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, just that, yes, we all face all these emotions. And at a higher level, the psilocybin DMT conversation is like, I am you, you are me, like we're having this kind of like differentiation, individuation of the human experience, but we feel all these emotions, doubts, fears, hopes, things. So then when I look at someone's eyes now, I can see my consciousness in them, and I have a lot of compassion for them. And I think that's what's going to continue to rise, is that people, even if the uniform's on and the jackboots, eventually love and compassion will win. It's just a matter of us being courageous to be out there talking about these things. Because as men, I don't know about you, but I wasn't raised expressing love, expressing compassion, and these kind of things. That was kind of like, a feminine thing. But it's like, no, the strongest men love deeply. They love their family. They love the people in their life. And we will die for people that we love. That's an act of sacrifice, is an act of love. So this type of conversation, like you said, not being afraid of this temporary thing, but we are the eternal consciousness. And I start to feel like this from around everybody. I'm like, oh, you guys noticed too? And you said it. And like, oh, I was like, oh, so this is part of the thing where some things are worth dying for, and freedom and, integrity or honor and goodness and protecting the children. These are good hills to dedicate our life to, because hiding in the closet saying, yeah, this thing's bad or this is not okay. No, property taxes, extortion, and robbery, it needs to stop. Telling children to mutilate their genitals is wrong. It needs to stop. And it's going to happen through your voice, through my voice, for people out there that create this type of media and have a platform to say these things, so that no longer is it terrifying to say what is the obvious truth. And this goes to the story of the emperor who has no clothes. Right? It's like, it's obvious he's naked, but it takes a child with the naivete and the unawareness to say, oh, he's naked. You're not allowed to say that. It's like, it's true. It's self-evident. It's there. And that's what Jones Plantation did for the state. So congratulations on this, Andrew. It's been an amazing time chatting with you and watching the film multiple times. Any final words to put out there? I think we could probably have another conversation later. But what do you want to share at the end of this conversation, based on film or some of the things that we talked about? Decentralization, Spooner, a lot of cool things that we covered. How do you want to sign off and kind of say farewell to the audience? Any words of advice or suggestion? It was a very powerful personal stories. I appreciate you sharing there at the end. But what are your final thoughts?
I guess if you suggestions, and I don't have any advice, but suggestions, if you study who you really are and you sit in the seat of consciousness, which is what you are, not your physical body. Your body is your tool, it's your gift. Your brain is your computer. You sit behind the brain, you watch the brain. The brain starts acting up and the emotions that you have are the dividends of what's going on in your brain. So if your brain starts thinking things and you start getting fearful, that's the dividend of what's going on in your brain. That's not you. If you could sit back in the seat of consciousness, you'll never make a bad decision. You'll always be right. If you just listen to your soul, you'll always be right. And go see the film.
Yeah. Go see the film. And where can people find you, follow you, and find the film or find your work?
Right now, the film is exclusively available at jonesplantationfilm.com, jonesplantationfilm.com. And it'll be out on the bigger platforms within a month or two, but they should go see it there because it's cheaper. It's a great platform. So they could check it out there. And then and they could follow. I've got a YouTube channel at Drew Media TV.
Okay.
We're going to be doing, I'm starting a show there soon. Yeah. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Follow him there at Drew Media on YouTube. And then you have a premiere coming up in LA. You want to mention that?
Oh, yeah. We're going to have a live screening of the film on January 20th. The red carpet starts at 8:30, doors open at 9:30 in LA at the Lemley Theater on Santa Monica Boulevard. Yeah. We're going to have full red carpet. So if you come dressed to impress, I'm trying to think where you could find that. Well, if you follow our Drones Plantation Twitter channel, or I mean, if you just go, when you go to Twitter, just put in Jones Plantation, we come up. Our Facebook channel, I mean, you can put it in the show notes. There's an Eventbrite. You can go in there and get a ticket for the screening. So it's going to be, like I said, at the Lemley on January 20th. It's going to be fun. Larkin's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Legal Man's going to be there. A bunch of the cast are going to be there.
Oh man!
So it should be a good time. And then the following Sunday, we're having an event like a late lunch afternoon kind of thing. From 1 to 4, we're going to serve lunch and meet with people and yada yada yada. So
amazing, man!
You should go. You're going to be in Mexico.
I'm going to be at the Greater Reset, with Derek Bros down there, and I had a buddy who actually had a ticket. So maybe I can make it happen another time. You can't be in two places at once, unfortunately. No. But this is another sign that there's good things happening, right? That there's 2 good freedom events happening. You want to go there, like you said, dress to impress. and go meet new friends and people that are in alignment with you, because you can meet one or two people that become lifelong friends. And that's happened to me, meeting people and just, hey man, this guy's cool. And you see them next
Yeah.
year, stay in touch with them, and you start, oh, these are my tribe members, or like family members almost, of people that are in alignment with the values, and basically being visionaries on the earth, and that's what I refer to you as, and some of these people that are talking about voluntarism, exposing this illegitimate organization called the state. And the last thing is, I just want people to know that the monarchy used to be thought of as legitimate, and now we went to the state, and now we're realizing the state is illegitimate. And so the next phase is that you, the individual, the man, the woman, you are the highest authority over your person, over your body, and over your property. And that's a lot, like we were just talking about, to sit in your seat of consciousness and to experience the sight, sound, smells, feels, everything of this experience is so amazing.
And
And
David talking right now. Have David talking? I'm experiencing that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with leadership, but what we have are rulers. And
Mm.
because children have rulers, but adults have leaders,
That's right. That's right.
And leaders will come on their own. They'll be natural. They'll occur. And we won't have the scum of the earth. It'll be the best people among us that will naturally arise. It was when you have this organized crime type of system, you're there. Everybody watching this knows you're just blown away by how awful these people are. It's like, how could you be this awful? How could you? Every word that comes out of your mouth is a lie. I don't know how you do it. How do you sleep? Are you human? Good question. Right. I don't know. It's mind. It's just like so bizarre. You don't even know how to take it in. Sometimes they're so crazy. These people, they're horrific. So no regard for human life, no regard for children, no regard for anything. So
yes. So we hope they heal. We send those people peace and love as we heal ourselves.
If they can.
If they're human, who knows the depths of this experience. There's more questions than answers that I have. But it's been an honor to spend some time with you, Drew. I appreciate you, being a amazing man on the earth and father, and, seeing the future of where this is going and taking the leadership to create this with Larkin and to do some visionary work. And I wish you continued success on all the next films for the American Dissenter movement. I think that's what it's called.
American dissident cinema. Just think of dissidents.
Dissidents. Okay.
Dissident. Just think dissident. Yeah. Dissident artist. Yeah.
Yes.
You're a dissident.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe in self-ownership and respect for self-ownership. And so if that's something that the rulers disagree on, and then, yeah, I guess I would be. But, like you said, you say the truth and you do the best to embody it, because eventually we will win. Eventually we'll be seen as correct. And it's not about ego and being correct, but it's about making the world a better place and protecting the children, protecting this beautiful thing called humanity and life. And yeah, I think we can have an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed rapping with you. And thank you, audience, for joining us on the Freedom Lovers Show. We are building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time, one film at a time, in Drew's case. And we invite you to consider doing the same thing and creating this amazing media and content to change people's minds and to inspire them, and most importantly, to entertain them with subtle messages of truth that will help liberate them from the Jones Plantation, aka the state, and slavery, so we can be free and build this voluntary world, voluntary living and voluntarism, as they all are synonymous. So thanks for joining us. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, audience member. We'll see you next time on the Freedom Lovers Show.
Thank you.